Hello, Community Keynotes family. I hope everyone's doing wonderful today. My name is Melissa Majors. I'm the creator of the show, but this would not happen without co-producer, the Amani Roberts. What's up, Amani?
What's up? We're back. Here we are.
We're back, honey. It's been about a year. And for those of you who may not be familiar with the show, let me give you some scoop. This whole idea was born from a conversation that Amani and I had during the pandemic when all of our projects dried up, right, Amani? We were like,
Yes.
what are we going to do with this
Yes.
pause? And you said something really profound. You said, Melissa, people still need to be inspired during this time. And we've got the mechanism, the platform. Let's figure out how to make it happen. And we did. And we had
Yes.
2 incredibly successful seasons last year, Amani. We featured, oh my goodness, like 16 people's
Yes.
stories.
Mm-hmm.
It was remarkable. And the stories that are shared on this show are not from polished keynote speakers like me and Amani. That's not it at all. Like fluffed up, polished folks. That's not it. The folks that are featured on this show are just ordinary folks who have extraordinary stories. And I don't know about you, Amani, I feel so blessed that we're able to help deliver those stories to the world.
I agree. As I remind you consistently, you're doing some special work here. And so just keep going. I'm very proud of the first 2 seasons. I'm excited about this season, and it's just much needed. So we have to keep it going.
Yeah, it is. Being able to connect authentically with people's experiences make us all feel like we're not out there on our own. And although we aren't having weekly episodes during these seasons, what we are doing now is when we bump into a really compelling story and speaker, we work with them and we feature on them on the show. And so today, I am so delighted that we get the opportunity to feature Ebony Jean-Louis, and she has the most incredible story of perseverance, resilience, and well, I won't tell you about it. Let's turn it over to Ebony. Ebony, the stage is all yours.
All right.
Thank you. July 7th, 2008. I'm not sure of the weather or even if it's sunny or raining outside, as this is the 3rd day of me laying on the left side of my body due to preeclampsia. It's the Monday after the holiday, and my family and I are anxiously awaiting to hear from a consulting doctor. The doctor finally arrives, and she advises us that the name of the game is to cook the baby as long as possible. You see, we were at 23 weeks gestation, and she tells us that at the current week, there's a 50% survival rate. The next week at 24 weeks, it goes to 75%. And weeks after that, it goes up a little bit more. 3 days later, at 24 weeks and 1 day, Sydney Jean-Louis makes his entrance into the world as a 1 pound, 7 ounce baby boy, 11 inches long. My name is Ebony Jean-Louis, and I have the pleasure of being Sydney's mother. I'd like to take you along my journey of what it's like to be the parent of a child with diverse abilities. Let's start back when my husband and I first realized that we were expecting. Like most new parents, we were excited. We were newly married, and this was our first child. We thought of names that we would call our child. We thought of what the nursery would look like. We even thought about what it would be like to be in the delivery room. But on July 10th, that changed for us. My husband didn't get to cut the umbilical cord, nor was I able to hold the child after delivery. You see, Sydney was considered to be what is called a fragile baby. And because he had premature lungs, he needed to be rushed to the NICU so that he can be placed on a ventilator. In reality, I actually didn't get to see Sydney for 3 days. If you can imagine that, as a new parent, that was devastation. And that was when my husband and I both realized that our definition of parenting was going to be a little bit different. Because Sydney was a fragile baby, we had the opportunity to stay in the hospital for 7 months. And I like to call that a blessing in disguise, because that allowed us to grieve what we thought was going to be normal and to pivot and change to what we needed to do to keep our baby alive. Y'all, we became bootleg practitioners. We learned how to measure NG tubes. And if you're not familiar with the NG tube, that's the feeding tube that goes from your nostril to your stomach, and get it just right in order for the baby not to regurgitate their food. We learned how to read pulse ox monitors, oxygen tanks, probes, change them, all of those things we learned to do over the next 7 months. And as we grew closer to going home, we realized that we needed to have the same things at home. So unlike most parents, and we didn't have the opportunity of just placing a car seat in the car and making sure that the nursery was available. We also had to think about other things because Sydney was going home with a heart monitor, oxygen tanks, breathing tubes, feeding tubes. All of those things were all a part of his equipment to go home. And as we went home, we had to also make sure that we had the same practitioners at home as we did in the office. So we got together our, what I like to call, group of ologists. That's your cardiologist, your neurologist, your pulmonologist, any ologist that you can think of, as well as physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists. These are all different specialists that were needed to help us to grow. And these were all important for us to make sure that we had survival. We also had to think about what our childcare was going to look like. We had to find a nursery that was related to kids with special needs. As we got home and we learned our routine, my husband and I then understood that we were able to do things that other people were. We just had to do it a little bit different. It would require us to tote an oxygen tank on our back and social distance at the time. We didn't know that's what it was called, but that's what we did. And we made it work. So as we continue to progress through our years, at the age of 2 years old, Sydney had broken all the barriers. He no longer was on any of those things that he came home with, but he was not crawling. So our pediatrician advised us to go speak to a neurologist. After speaking to the neurologist advised that Sydney had cerebral palsy and that he thought that he was also autistic. If you can imagine, this was a devastation to me. We had broken all the barriers. We thought we were well on our way. We just wanted to get him to progress. And we thought his lack of progression was due to him being a preemie. So I went to work that next day, and my boss noticed that I was not my normal self. And he asked what was going on, and I told him about our new diagnosis. And he advised me that and gave me a good reminder that I was a woman of God and that I didn't have to accept the diagnosis. And not accepting the diagnosis is not meaning that I don't agree with it, but I don't have to accept the labels and the predictions that come with it. We can still operate normal. And that's what my husband and I have done thus far. Anytime there's a new diagnosis that is provided to Sydney, and they come, we just move forward and we treat him as what is a normal child would be considered to do. As we continue to go through Sydney's life, we also had to challenge the situations that he was placed in. Because Sydney was labeled eventually with that autism label, he was placed in a classroom full of autistic children. And unlike other autistic children, Sydney is very social. He's going to talk to you, he's going to hug you, he's going to laugh with you. And obviously he wasn't getting the social needs that he needed in a classroom of kids with less social skills. So we had to challenge, after many meetings with the school board, to place him into different settings that would help him with adjusting to his skill sets and help him to better develop. As Sydney continued to grow, when he turned 6 years old, we noticed that Sydney began to collapse. He would just be standing in front of us and we had no idea what was going on. He'll just fall. And so as we brought this up to our doctors, they said, oh, it's just growing pains. Because he has cerebral palsy, his muscles are outgrowing, his bones are outgrowing his muscles. He'll grow out of it. Well, that growing out of it became 2 years later. And at one point I had it. And I told the doctor something else needs to be done. So the doctor said, well, let's do some blood tests. And as we did a blood test of both Sydney, myself, and my husband, we identified that Sydney had a disease called Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And this disease is a disease that is rare in boys. It's where the Y chromosome is missing from their cells. And so what happens is they begin to regress from walking, and their muscles begin to regress from growth. Had we not pressed forward, had we not pressured the doctors, we may not have ever realized that was the situation that was going on. Much like challenging the status quo, we also had to learn how to protect our son. And sometimes that protection was from ourselves. We as parents couldn't help but to compare our son to other kids that were born at the same time as Sydney. In doing so, that just made it harder for my husband and I to continue to grow. But Sydney always showed us that he's going to do it when he wants to do it, not when we thought it was for him to do it. Protecting him also means to protect him from situations of harm. Sydney was placed in a class that had lots of kids in it, and the teacher lacked classroom control. We brought our concerns up to the principal, and the principal said she would do something about it and put plans in place. Well, that came to a halt when Sydney came home one day with a scratch on his face due to scissors scraping the side of his face. The teacher had her story of what happened, but Sydney, again, being very talkative and very informative, advised what happened according to his account. Because we were our child's advocate, we were done. So we had to fight to put Sydney in another classroom, as well as a whole nother school. In addition to protecting him from situations, we also have to protect him from the opinions of others. Sometimes family members and friends would question why Sydney was not progressed along, or why things were not what they thought should be. And, honestly speaking, guys, I don't know how I handled that situation. All I know is that the Holy Spirit sometimes came through and spoke for me. In these areas and throughout Sydney's life, I can say that I've learned 3 important keys. The first thing is perseverance. No matter what your situation is, you can always persevere. If you have faith in what is to happen, it will overcome. The next is you have to sometimes challenge your situation. Do not allow others to place labels on you that limit your ability. You challenge something that you feel like you can do better. And lastly, be an advocate for those that may not be able to speak for themselves. Speak out on their behalf. Talk to others about how their situation can be differently, and be the voice for them. I thank you for your time.
Oh, Ebony. Everyone who's watching, put your fingers on the keyboard, whether you're watching live or the recorded, and show your appreciation for Ebony, her journey, and her story. You did a wonderful job, Ebony. Thank you so much. And some things that really just resonate with me about her story. Persevere through it all. Have faith in the end. Persevere. Challenge the diagnosis. You don't have to accept the labels. Oh, I love that so much about her story. And then last but not least, speak up for others who can't speak up for themselves. That's something that's within all of our control and we can do. And Ebony, for Community Keynotes, we always ask the speaker, what cause do you care most about? Let's help raise some funds for that cause. And today we are raising funds for Parents Project Muscular Dystrophy. And we are raising funds. Either you can donate directly on their website, or we have created swag and gifts that resonate, that tell the story of Ebony's journey. And so remind yourself, you can wear this inspiration on your sleeve or on your cup, but go to storystore.us or scan the QR code that you see on the bottom left-hand corner on the screen so that you can purchase some of these items and support Ebony's story and her cause, Parents Project Muscular Dystrophy. And with that, I would like to welcome back to the stage co-producer Amani Roberts and Ebony Jean-Louis so we can dive even deeper into her story. Welcome back.
Thank you. Tremendous job, Ebony. You can take a couple of deep breaths now. Well done. We have a couple of questions for you to share some more of your wisdom and expertise with the people. I would love to hear your definition of resilience.
I think that's my story right now. Resilience is taking a situation that may be challenging and overcoming it, pressing forward despite whatever those obstacles may be, and just moving forward.
I love it. I love it. Now we're going to go back to talk to 21-year-old Ebony and give her advice based on what you know now. What advice would you give your younger self?
that everything that you go through is a life lesson. Sometimes it's intentional for the situation, or sometimes it's to help someone in the future.
Lessons. Okay. And then what message would you have for other women who are going through maybe something similar, a similar journey to what you've been through?
Find your tribe. My husband and I getting through this situation, relying upon other parents that are in similar situation, is very therapeutic. Honestly, it helps you with understanding that you're not in it alone and that you can overcome it.
Excellent. And any advice to people who are maybe looking for their tribe? How are you able to successfully find your tribe?
Well, in most cases, for us, because we have pretty known diagnoses. A lot of times the doctors automatically provided us with group therapy sessions or group individuals. But quite honestly, when Sydney was in the hospital for 7 months, there were other kids that were in the hospital with us. And we are Facebook friends, families. We sometimes get together throughout the years. So even that connection helped us as well.
Excellent.
Shout out to Ebony's tribe. They're probably watching on Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn Live right now. So thank y'all for everything you've done to also be a support to Ebony and her family.
Absolutely. Melissa, I know you're sitting there maybe bubbling with a few questions of your own to ask. Talk to us.
Yes, talking about tribe and your cause, tell folks why you chose this cause. Tell us a little bit about it and if there's anything more that we can do to help support.
Absolutely. So the Parent Project Muscular Dystrophy Program is actually something that's new to us. Sydney's diagnosis of Duchenne muscular dystrophy is very recent. It happened at the peak of the pandemic. And so as we learn more about what it is to be in that situation, that group has definitely helped us with ideas. It is a organization, because it is rare, that maybe doesn't get a lot of exposure to others out there in the world. I thought it was a great opportunity for us to expose it. A lot of times there's stem cell research and things of that nature, hosting families that are very costly. And this project helps with offsetting some of that cost.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And for those of you who are watching, we've got a donate button on the Community Keynotes Facebook page, so you can go there or go directly to their website, or again, purchase some swag and gifts. 50% of your proceeds will be donated to Parent Project Muscular Dystrophy. So Ebony, I'm just so proud of you. Truly, you've done an amazing job. And the way that you and I met was a recommendation from Cass McMahon. Shout out to Cass McMahon, who it was one of the keynote speakers on the stage this time last year.
Hey, cousin.
Cass, she's here watching. We see you, Cass. Thank you for coming.
And she said, listen, you just get to know Ebony. And we didn't even know that we were going to end up sharing your story on this platform. This was ordained. I truly believe, and I trust that your message is going to serve as a vessel for somebody else's inspiration for somebody else's life. So on behalf of those people, and I'm sure you're going to hear all about them on Facebook and things like that, thank you for opening up, being so vulnerable, and sharing your story.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have to give a special shout out to Janice, who's tuning in. Thank you. Aisha, Kimberly, Kadisha. Hope I said that right, Kadisha. Lacey, Tiffany, we're here. Sheena, and Erica. So yeah, thank you, Albert. Robert, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate all the support. Any last minute words, Melissa?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and make sure that you tune back in on January 17th. As I mentioned, we only feature stories that are really, really compelling. And on January 17th, we have an incredible story by MC Thibault. She is going to share her story on the stage, and so you don't want to miss. So stay tuned into the Community Keynotes page on Facebook and YouTube for more. Thank you again, Ebony. Thank you for all your supporters. And everyone, have a wonderful holiday, and we'll see you in January. Bye now.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.